No one in the galaxy feared humans. That was the first mistake. The chamber of the Ziran High Council hovered in silence above a dying star, its vast walls shimmering with maps of conquered systems. Each glowing point marked a civilization that had risen and fallen. The Council had judged them all, and now a new world rotated slowly at the center. Earth. Commander Rylan stood motionless, studying the fragile blue planet. Oceans swirled peacefully, clouds drifting like nothing in the universe could touch it. "Begin final assessment," he ordered. Archivist Telvar stepped forward, long fingers moving through streams of data. War footage flickered to life, missiles tearing through skies, cities burning, soldiers shouting in chaos. "Species designation, human," Telvar said calmly. "Technological level, primitive. Not yet spacefaring beyond their local system." A few council members shifted, already losing interest. "Psychological profile?" Rylan asked. Telvar expanded the projection. Images shifted, acts of kindness, followed by destruction, unity, followed by betrayal. "Contradictory," he replied. "They display empathy and cooperation, but are equally prone to violence and division. Their history is dominated by internal conflict." A low murmur spread across the chamber. "They destroy their own kind?" one council member asked. "Frequently," Telvar confirmed. "And their planet?" "Damaged by their own actions. Environmental instability increasing." Another member gave a sharp, dismissive sound. "Then they are already eliminating themselves. Why are we even discussing them?" Rylan didn't answer immediately. His gaze remained fixed on Earth. "And their military?" he asked. The display shifted again. Fighter jets streaking across skies, tanks rolling through ruined terrain, soldiers advancing through smoke. "Fragmented," Telvar said. "Divided among separate nations. No unified command. Their weapons are effective at planetary scale, but insignificant against interstellar forces." "Threat level?" Rylan asked. Telvar didn't hesitate. "Minimal." This time, quiet laughter echoed through the chamber. "Their greatest enemy is themselves," one council member said. "They will never unite," another added. "They will collapse long before they become relevant." Each statement reinforced the same conclusion. Weak, unstable, insignificant. Rylan finally stepped closer to the holographic Earth. For a moment, he said nothing. "Run predictive simulations," he ordered. The system responded instantly. Thousands of outcomes flashed across the chamber, possible futures branching in every direction. In most of them, humanity failed. Civil wars escalated. Resources ran out. Nations turned on each other. Extinction followed. The Council watched with quiet satisfaction. "Predictable," one of them muttered. But then, Rylan raised a hand. "Pause. Highlight anomalies." The display shifted. A small number of simulations, barely visible, remained. In those timelines, something changed. Humans stopped fighting each other. Nations dissolved their differences. Technology advanced rapidly, far beyond expected projections, and when faced with an external threat, they fought together. The room fell silent. "That's an error," one council member said quickly. "Statistical noise," another added. Rylan didn't look away. "Explain." Telvar hesitated. That alone was unusual. "These outcomes rely on highly improbable conditions," he said. "Global cooperation, accelerated innovation, sustained unity under pressure. In other words, a council member interrupted. Impossible. Telvar nodded. Effectively, yes. The simulations flickered again, showing something even more unsettling. In those rare timelines, humans didn't just survive. They won. Ryland's eyes narrowed slightly. Probability? He asked. Less than 1%, Telvar replied immediately. That was all the council needed. The anomalies were dismissed as irrelevant. Ryland turned away from the projection. Proceed with classification. The holographic Earth expanded, filling the chamber. Every signal of life flickered across its surface. Billions of individuals, unaware they were being judged. Telvar's voice became official, recorded into the archives of the galaxy. Final designation: worst species in the galaxy. The words echoed, then locked into permanence. A verdict that would never be questioned. Recommendation? Rylan asked. Telvar answered without hesitation. Extermination advised. No one objected. Why would they? The worst species in the galaxy wasn't worth preserving. The decision was transmitted instantly, encoded in layers of advanced mathematics and language, far beyond human understanding. Or so they believed. On Earth, the signal arrived unnoticed. At first, it slipped through satellites, buried itself in cosmic background noise, and passed through systems not designed to understand it. Until one did. Dr. Elias Carter stared at his screen, frowning. "Run that again," he said. The signal repeated. Structured. Deliberate. Not random. His pulse quickened. "This isn't natural," one of his colleagues whispered. "No," Elias said slowly. "It's a message." Hours turned into days as they worked without rest. Layer by layer, the code unraveled. Patterns became language. Language became meaning. And finally, clarity. Elias leaned back, his face pale. "What does it say?" someone asked. He hesitated. "Then read the first line. Worst species in the galaxy." A few nervous laughs broke the silence. "Okay. Not funny," someone muttered. Elias didn't react. "There's more," he said quietly. He brought up the final decoded line, the one never meant for human eyes, the one that changed everything. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Extermination recommended." The room went completely still. No one laughed this time, because deep down, they all understood the same thing. Humanity had just been judged, and the sentence had already been passed. The message spread across Earth faster than any war ever had. At first, governments tried to contain it. They failed. Within hours, fragments leaked. Within a day, the full translation was everywhere, broadcast across news networks, social media, underground forums. Worst species in the galaxy. Extermination recommended. Panic followed. Not chaos, worse. Silence. Dr. Elias Carter stood before a room full of world leaders, military officials, and scientists. The air felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. "They're real," Elias said, "and they've already judged us." A general slammed his hand on the table. "Then we prepare for war." "With what?" Another snapped. "They're interstellar. We're barely unified on this planet." "That's exactly the problem," Elias said. The room quieted. "They think we can't unite," he continued, "that we'll fall apart before they even arrive." "And will we?" someone asked. No one answered. For a moment, Humanity stood at the edge of its own prediction. Then something unexpected happened. A message was sent, not from one nation, but from all of them. A single broadcast. A single statement. We are under external threat. All conflicts are suspended. It wasn't trust. It wasn't peace. It was survival. Military forces that once pointed at each other turned outward. Scientists shared classified research without hesitation. Rivals became allies overnight, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. Elias watched it unfold with quiet disbelief. Maybe they were wrong, he whispered. But deep down, he wasn't sure. Far above Earth, the Ziran fleet entered the system. Commander Rylan stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger. No resistance detected, an officer reported. Of course not, another replied. They don't even know we're here. Rylan remained silent. Something still felt off. Begin scan, he ordered. Data flooded in. Global communications. Military movements. Energy signatures. Then, an officer frowned. Sir, that's unusual. Report. Human military activity has ceased. Internally. Rylan turned slightly. Explain. They've stopped fighting each other. A pause. That changes nothing, another officer said quickly. They are still primitive. Rylan didn't respond. Instead, he gave a single command. Prepare for first contact. On Earth, every major screen flickered at once. A signal. Clear. Powerful. Unmistakable. The same voice echoed across the planet. Species. Human. You have been evaluated. Cities fell silent. People stopped moving. Listening. You have been judged unfit for galactic existence. Elias closed his eyes. It was happening. Extermination will now begin. The signal cut. And for a moment, nothing happened. Then the sky lit up. The invasion didn't come with warning. It came with fire. Massive ships tore through Earth's atmosphere, their shadows swallowing entire cities. The sky burned as energy beams struck the surface with surgical precision. Military bases vanished in seconds. Communication networks collapsed. Satellites went dark. Commander Rylan watched from orbit, his voice calm. Begin cleansing. Explosions rippled across continents. This is easier than expected, one officer said. They aren't responding, another added. Rylan narrowed his eyes. Scan for countermeasures. None detected. Below, Earth had gone quiet. Too quiet. Then, a Ziran ship exploded. Not from an external attack. From within. What happened? An officer shouted. Internal system failure. Another ship followed. Then another. Rylan's expression hardened. That's not failure. That's interference. Human voices broke through intercepted channels. Phase 1 complete. Rylan felt something shift. Impossible. But it wasn't. On Earth, Elias stared at a live feed, heart racing. They took the signal apart, he said. They learned from it. Human engineers had done the unthinkable, reverse-engineered fragments of alien code within hours. Hackers infiltrated systems never meant to be breached. They didn't match alien technology. They bypassed it. And now, the invasion was no longer one-sided. Chaos didn't spread slowly through the Ziran fleet. It detonated. System breach on Deck 7. Navigation controls are unresponsive. Weapons are firing without command. The bridge of the flagship erupted into overlapping alarms and sharp, clipped voices. For the first time since entering Earth's orbit, the Ziran were no longer in control. Commander Rylan stood at the center of it all, perfectly still. "Silence," he said. The command cut through the noise instantly. "Report. Clearly." An officer stepped forward, visibly shaken. "Our systems are being overridden from multiple access points. We've isolated the signal origin." He hesitated. "It's coming from the planet." Ryland's eyes narrowed. "From humans?" "Yes, Commander." "That's impossible," another officer snapped. "Their technology is evolving," Rylan interrupted. The word hung in the air. Not improving, not advancing, evolving. Because what they were witnessing wasn't linear progress. It was acceleration. On Earth, the war had changed. What began as survival had become adaptation. Dr. Elias Carter stood inside a converted command center, surrounded by screens streaming real-time battlefield data. Alien code scrolled beside human algorithms, merged, rewritten, weaponized. "They're trying to lock us out," a technician said. "Then don't let them," Elias replied. "Rewrite the access points. If there's a door, we open it. If there isn't, we make one," the technician finished. Elias nodded. That was the difference. Aliens built systems to be perfect. Humans built systems to be broken and fixed, over and over again. Back in orbit, another Ziran cruiser went dark. Then another. "What are they doing?" an officer whispered. Rylan watched the battle unfold across multiple displays. Human aircraft, primitive by every known standard, were now moving in coordinated formations alongside stolen Ziran fighters. "They're learning our tactics," the officer added. "No," Rylan said quietly. "They're rewriting them." On the surface, the war had become brutal. Cities lay in ruins. Smoke filled the sky. The ground trembled with distant impacts. And still, humans advanced. A small unit of soldiers moved through a shattered urban battlefield, their armor scorched, their weapons barely holding together. "Command says fall back," one of them shouted. The leader shook his head. "Negative. We hold here. We're outnumbered." "I know. We're outgunned." "I know. Then why are we still here?" The leader looked up as a Ziran dropship roared overhead. "Because if we fall back," he said, gripping his weapon tighter, "there's nowhere left to go." A moment of silence. Then the comm crackled. A voice, calm, steady, unshaken. "We're not trapped with them." The soldiers froze. Then the voice finished. "They're trapped with us." Something shifted. Not in the battlefield. In them. Fear didn't disappear. It transformed. Into something sharper. More dangerous. They moved forward. On the flagship, Rylan replayed intercepted transmissions. Human voices. Calm under pressure. Aggressive under threat. Unpredictable in ways no model had accounted for. "They're supposed to collapse," one officer said. "They're supposed to panic." Rylan didn't respond. Because they weren't collapsing. They weren't panicking. They were adapting faster than the invasion itself. "Commander," an analyst said cautiously, "we've reviewed updated projections." And the analyst hesitated. "The probability of human victory is increasing." Silence. "That's not possible," another officer said immediately. It was 1%, the analyst replied. It's no longer 1%. Rylan finally turned. For the first time, he said slowly, we are no longer in control of the outcome. No one spoke, because they all understood what that meant. The worst species in the galaxy was no longer losing. The final battle didn't begin with a declaration. It began with a mistake. Or at least, that's what the Ziran thought. Commander, multiple human vessels approaching, uncoordinated formations. Rylan studied the incoming signals. The ships moved erratically, breaking every known rule of tactical engagement. They're disorganized, an officer said. This is their last attempt. Rylan didn't answer, because something felt wrong. Scan them, he ordered. The results came back instantly. Silence followed. They're modified, the officer said slowly. How? Hybrid systems. Ziran core technology integrated with human engineering. Another officer stepped back. That's not possible. That level of integration would take years, Rylan finished. A pause. They did it in days. On Earth, Elias watched the final phase unfold. Are we ready? Someone asked. Elias didn't look away from the screen. No, he said. Then, after a brief pause. But they won't expect that. He activated the command. Launch everything. The sky above Earth lit up again. But this time, it wasn't the Ziran. Human-controlled ships surged upward, breaking through the atmosphere with violent force. Some were stolen. Others were rebuilt. All of them were dangerous. Open fire, a Ziran officer ordered. Energy beams tore through space, but missed. Human ships didn't move predictably. They zigzagged, split formation, regrouped in ways that made no tactical sense. They're not following any pattern, the officer shouted. Exactly, Rylan said. And that was the problem. Then the first Ziran warship fell. Not from outside. From within. A chain reaction ripped through its core, triggered by modified human code embedded deep inside its systems. They're using our ships against us, someone yelled. Shut it down. We can't. Explosions spread across the fleet. One after another. Controlled. Precise. Devastating. On the flagship, alarms screamed. Multiple breaches. Defensive systems offline. Command override detected. Rylan grabbed the console. Override it back. We're locked out. For the first time. The Ziran couldn't access their own systems. On Earth, Elias exhaled slowly. It worked, someone whispered. No, Elias said. Not yet. Because the flagship still stood. Rylan looked out at the battlefield. Ships burning. Formation collapsing. Control slipping away. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was a reversal. Commander, an officer said, voice shaking, we need to retreat. Rylan didn't respond immediately. He watched as another Ziran cruiser exploded, destroyed by its own weapons. They adapted, he said quietly. No one argued. Retreat, he ordered. And just like that, the most powerful fleet in the region turned away. Not in strategy, not in control, in survival. They fled. Days later, the High Council chamber felt different. Heavier, quieter. The same projection of Earth hovered at the center, but no one saw it as fragile anymore. Rylan stood before them. Update the classification, he said. Telvar hesitated. New designation? Rylan looked at the planet, at the species they had misjudged, underestimated, almost erased. No longer the worst species, he said. Silence. Then, the most dangerous. The words settled into the chamber like a warning, because this time, they weren't a conclusion. They were a realization. On Earth, the war was over. For now. Elias stood beneath a clear sky, staring at the stars. We actually did it, someone said behind him. Elias shook his head slightly. No, he said. We survived. A pause. They'll come back. He looked up again. And this time, he wasn't afraid. Because now, the galaxy knew something it hadn't before. Humans didn't need to be the strongest. They didn't need to be the smartest. They just needed time. And once they had it, they became unstoppable.